Hello and welcome to Tao Radio.
Thanks for joining us. This is Muna and
Leah.
And we're here to take you on a journey with us while we explore the great sounds, music, arts and cultures from all around the world. Welcome to Tao Radio, the show where we explore folklore as a living, evolving expression of identity, creativity, and community. Today, we're joined by Faris Ishaq, a Palestinian ney master, percussionist and composer who charts new territory with one of humanity's oldest instruments, the ney, a Middle Eastern flute that has been around for over 5,000 years. Born in Bethlehem, Faris taught himself to play the ney before earning a scholarship to Berklee College of Music, where he studied global jazz. His artistry bridges traditions, from the pastoral shepherd's music of Palestine to contemporary jazz and collaborations with Grammy Award-winning musicians. With 3 albums to his name and performances at major festivals around the world, Faris has brought the voice of the ney into both ancient and modern landscapes. Through his music, he embodies the essence of what we feel is contemporary folklore, honoring the simplicity and history of the ney while opening it to new audiences and new stories. I first met Faris in May of 2022 for a walk in Hampstead Heath, sometime after the last COVID restrictions were lifted. It was that early conversation about the ney, its history and its folklore, that the idea for what would become Tao Radio emerged. I'm so delighted today that Faris is with us so we can share in his insights and in his wisdoms. Welcome, Faris.
Thank you so much, Muna. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be on Tao Radio.
Oh, beautiful. We're so happy you're here. So, Faris, I think a great way to start this call is to just talk about your origins and the call of the ney. What called you to this instrument? Why did you choose it?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't choose the ney, particularly as an instrument. I was born and raised in Bethlehem, Palestine. At the age of 18, I left to study outside. So music was not the first choice for my career or hobby. I was more into dancing dabka, which is a traditional Palestinian dance, and also sports. Then most of my friends, they saw an opportunity in Edward Said Conservatory of Music, which was one of the main initiatives starting to provide like professional music education. So yeah, they dragged me into music, my friends. I started playing different wind instruments at the age of 12, like clarinet, phonium, trombone. I knew about the ney as an instrument, but it's not a very common instrument. It is a common instrument in our heritage, but it's also it's getting less and less common in the Middle East because of two main reasons: that how difficult this instrument to play, and also because of the disconnection from our folklore and heritage. So younger people don't have this access to it. But that said, there was a day where I went to my uncle's house and with my brother, and then he had some reed cane. So he asked my brother to create a ney or a flute. We say shababa in the modern language. Shababa means to become young. Like the instrument is a way of becoming young. He said to my brother, make me please a shababa. So of course my brother made it, and I was there. I play wind instruments, so I took it, and I never gave it back to my uncle. So
Sorry, how does one make a sharbada?
Shababa. It's very intuitive. I mean, there is two things. There's, of course, the intuitive part of making it, that you just take the reed cane and then it should be hollow, so you empty it a little bit. And then you put some random holes. That's what my brother did. But also there's the professional way, which has its science behind it. So, without changing a lot with the natural shape of the ney, you have to keep like 9 segments of the reed cane and then put some specific holes. There's 7 holes. And there's a lot of ney instrument masters in Egypt, in Syria, in Turkey that have this science. And this is the typical ney that I play and other professional ney players play.
And which scale does it follow then? Because if the shape of the original reed it's going to influence the tuning, no, because of its form and the holes. What is the scale that the instrument has naturally?
A professional ney set would consist of 11 to 12 neys. So each ney is dedicated to play certain scales. Let's say the ney, which is tuned in C, can play 3 to 4 different scales. So you would need more neys to cover like the full spectrum of music scales. And particularly for Arabic music, it's very important because it deals with microtones. So respecting that, you have to choose appropriate ney to give the spirituality and the ecstasy of this particular, maqam, we say, mode.
Yes, I love that you've brought in spirit so early in the conversation. And so my next question is, in a way, you've already implied that the instrument chose you by virtue of that first interplay. So what does it mean to you as a musician and also as a Palestinian?
Well, the ney for me is an instrument of self-exploration. First of all, it's an instrument of reflection. It has such a direct connection to the human breath and the body. So the ney, as Leah mentioned before, which scales you need, it's a very simple instrument. It's very minimal in its design. So the human breath and intention is the main element to amplify the sound and change its resonance. So it has a direct connection to us. It doesn't have a mouthpiece. It doesn't have big mechanics to amplify the sound. So it's all about me and the ney to kind of work together. So it teaches me as a musician to connect to my body. It tells me on a certain day where I'm totally disconnected, where I feel anger and where I feel sadness, where I feel certain emotions. So it's really like direct, boom, in your face. That's what it means to me. And I reflected this direct connection to a project called Jasad, which is a solo project and an upcoming album that amplifies this connection and lets me explore my body as a form of technology instead of relying on, because nowadays it's so easy to create music with instant music production softwares or, creating some electronic loops or whatever. So I'm trying to explore my body as a form of and as a Palestinian, the ney, as I said, it has a different name. It's called Shababa, but they're from the same family. The Shababa, as I said before, it means to become young. It was one of the first innate forms of playing for ney players. It has a reflective side to our surrounding nature and landscapes. So it has a direct connection to our land, playing in nature, reflecting the beauty of it, the rocks, the mountains, the valleys, the water. Also, it has a very rhythmic aspect in our music, which is not a very common one in the Middle East, and particularly in Arabic music. In Palestinian music, the tashbib is more rhythmic and more celebratory, more percussive. So this particularly drew me a lot because I was interested in that element. And this one is directly associated with the Palestinian dabka and celebrations. And dabka is not just a traditional dance, it's a form of expression that involves percussive stomping on the ground. And with the stomping, we validate our connection to the land and we validate the connection to the soil itself. So it's a form of like pride. I would say pride is a perfect word to express that. And this has evolved, of course, because of the many years of oppression that our country has faced, from the Ottoman to the British to the madness today. So, yeah.
So you've already kind of created a segue to what my next question was, to dive a little deeper into the Nai itself, into its materiality. So not only is it one of the oldest instruments in human history, but it's really crafted directly from earth materials, from reeds that grow near rivers. And do you feel that this materiality that you say while playing it connects you also to the earth is somehow the instrument is encoded with its own wisdom?
So I'm mainly self-taught. But after 5 years, 6 years of studying the ney, of teaching myself, I decided to stop every other wind instrument I played and just dedicate myself to the ney. This choice came because this instrument was so special to me at that time, and I wanted to dedicate more time to it. So I went to a ney master in Jordan. I took 2 lessons. And I recall this encounter. He shared with me that the ney is made out of living reed cane. The reed cane is different from wood, because other woodwind instruments, you dry the wood and then you oil it, and then this is how the sound gets. But in order for the ney sound, the reed cane's vitality has to stay strong. And he also shared with me that in order to keep the ney's vitality, the best way to maintain it is with the human breath. And not with the fancy oils we use for the reed cane. But it's good to use these oils for a time, but then at a certain point, the quality of the ney does not accept a lot of external materials. So it really wants like a direct relationship with the human body. And I have my neys since 10 years, professional set, and they're perfectly amazing. Like their resonance is increasing more and more because they are kind of getting used to my breath, and I'm getting also used to them. So this is why I would say the encoded wisdom that I take from the ney is that the connection between our body and nature is inseparable.
I think that's very beautiful that you, as the craftsman, as the musician, are keeping it alive through your use of it, that symbiotic relationship. And to follow that, my next question is then, does the sound of the ney that you originate, is it as unique as your fingerprint?
On any instrument, I believe, because we inherit a certain sound, whether in our head and through what we hear through our body also. So particularly in the ney, there is the soft playing of also melancholic, which is a big part of the Middle Eastern music, the Arabic music. The ney is commonly associated as a sad instrument. It often plays with sad songs. So for me, I love that part. I played it for a while, but also the ney it has its spiritual space in many other cultures. For example, in Persia, in Turkey, also in parts of the Middle East, it has this meditative, spiritual side that I also explored. And the third one, which is the one I mentioned, the tashbih, the percussive, celebratory, very uncommon. Few ney players actually implement it nowadays. So all of that I had to play to live it, like playing with different music ensembles across different time zones in my career. So yeah, and then I started developing my own sound, which is a long process.
I'm really interested in knowing
Yeah, yeah.
more about your spiritual experiences with music and this exploration. How does that work? Is it encoded in the music languages that you speak? Is it in the exchanges that you have on a stage? I'm sure there's many facets.
Yeah. The main source of like accessing the breath, the breathing, spending a lot of times just playing the ney and hearing and allowing the natural breathing to happen with the ney, which is something can be scary for musicians, because if you go on stage and allow the natural breathing to happen, it doesn't have the element of control. It doesn't have the element of, I want to make my concert great, so I want to control. But it's allowing this breathing to happen can break a lot of things. And then you realize that the breathing can be a vehicle to understanding different things within the mechanics of how you work, even in solo projects, like, for example, in Jasad, or with my quartet Kham. Kham, particularly the quartet, is we have this bigger space of improvising, and each one bringing his unique interpretation of melodies I've written, compositions. So giving up ideas on stage can be extremely hard. But this is the point where we're accepting, like, giving up that idea and then seeing someone take it further and then trying to develop it. It's like a family. It's like a real life, it's building together something and serving music instead of serving our expectations. And this is where it becomes like the music is the bigger vehicle. The music is the bigger image, let's say.
How I mean, because we're in the space of collaboration, and what you've touched on is, we call it improv, but that's just how people used to play music. In older times, you just showed up, the rhythm started, and people flowed together, right? So I think in some way, from what you're saying, is that you're keeping that performative heritage alive. I mean, and I think improv is that way that we do that. We keep that folkloric relationship with each other alive. I want to go back and now talk a little bit about that collaboration, that crossing of worlds, what we like to call contemporary folklore, because we are in the present today. And in the present today, we're no longer living just from our place or our particular heritage or our particular history. We're also all getting integrated and connected. And, your work is such a grand example of that. You've revitalized the tashbib, which is the shepherd style of music from Palestine, but you blend it with jazz. So how do you see this new space, this way that traditions can speak to each other? Because it is a conversation.
Yeah, for me, they're part of the same culture, actually. They share probably more than one common musical quality. The main thing is the free form of expression and improvisation or reflection, because in tashbib or shepherd's music, it's the form we inherit. Probably the first one who started this, I don't know if it was a shepherd or not, but it's a common way to say that. So it's the reflection and the free form of expression, which is there also in jazz music. What drew me to jazz music is the beauty of expression and the different structures where you can form your voice and be heard and be diplomatic. It's a very diplomatic music. The second thing is the groove and how it evolved. In tashbib, there's a big aspect of groove and different forms of dancing similar to jazz. So that was kind of my doorway to jazz. For me, I studied global jazz music. I did my master's because I wanted to access that kind of music, not just with basic knowledge, but also with more practical knowledge, like swimming in the pool of jazz, understanding its subtleties and its bigger potential. I was lucky to study with the jazz masters like Joan Patitucci, Danilo Perez, and I've been very grateful. They shared their wisdom and they shared their practice with me.
And so this path that you've been on, can you tell us about how it's moving? I mean, is this something that as you got to learn jazz because of your interest in that, how did that integration happen with the nai? Is there other examples of the nai being used in jazz ensembles as well?
No, there are a few examples. I took a lot of time. The nai is the most difficult instruments to get a sound of. If you're familiar with the nai, then so before I went to study, I started practicing playing, like, for example, on every music scale on one nai only. Then I opened two different new holes on the nai Of course, that's an invention of an instrument maker in Egypt. And even though, like with having 9 holes with the ney, you still don't have the full range of music notes with one. So you have to count again, you come back to your body using different techniques of blending, using your breath to get like a semitone up or down. So that was the first part of implementing it. The second part was going through a bit of the process of what a regular jazz musician would go through at the beginning, is playing a lot of jazz standards, but I played them on the ney. Of course, that was a totally crazy thing, trying to do that and playing some trumpet lines, playing some saxophone lines. I transcribed John Coltrane's By Blackbird solo on the ney, which was, of course, stretching to all my... So, yeah. But then I stopped at a certain point because I didn't want to continue the regular process. I'm getting back to my root, the ney, the essence of Palestinian music. So at that point, I was searching for my own voice within jazz music. So, yeah, that was basically how my first album started.
And I love that about you, Faris. When we listen to you speak now, when our audience will listen to your music, your fans, already what attracts them to you is the element of the personal with the folklore. That, you know, your voice, because I believe somehow that the noise, your voice is very much rooted in who you are, your personal journey, but also enveloped within all the heritage and the folklore. So it's just this beautiful symbiotic relationship between the individual and the community, and that community through time and space. And as we listen to your music, as we look at your videos, that personal element in each song is there, from the composition to what you call your name. It's all a very large artistic project to me, and thank you for sharing that with the world.
Thank you.
So if we can now go into that insight, you know, Aliyah herself is a musician, so she's always interested in learning about the process of how you create that music, how you go into composition. So not all musicians are also composers.
Yeah, I really don't know how I compose. It's always like I stop for a moment and then reflect a bit, like how. But it comes out of I just go to my studio and then I open a microphone or without a microphone and then just improvise, and see how this what expressions come out. And the next day I try to listen and see what the hell did I do like last so, and then ideas start to shape themselves together. And I guess with the base knowledge that I have of making different structures, I try to play with them and see what form comes out. And then I take this idea and spend about a week, 2 weeks with it, 3 weeks, form it into a different language, or also getting it to that place of personal expression. Yeah. And as I like to listen to the ney, for me is about listening to the sound of the reed cane and see the form of expression and then responding with my own human emotions to it. In the same way, I respond to the musical piece and see where I want to take it further.
I was wondering about earlier, you were expressing this risk you can take if you have the courage to take it, about the breath transcending the rules, about sharing that as your ensemble as well. What an act of faith it sounds like to collectively with your group say, you know, we see what happens when you talk about the ney having a life of its own. Do you feel any times that when you're composing does the ney ever take over the whole game and then it's like it does its own thing?
Wow. Yes, it does completely. Completely. It has such a strong voice that even if you try to take the composition somewhere with your intellect or with your compositional knowledge, then just one simple ney breath can change the game. One long note can really take it somewhere else.
Sounds like an interplay between discipline and surrender.
It is. It is. But it's also an interesting thing because I feel like with the ney, I can cheat my way into any musical compositions. Because if you, after a way of having this faith, as Leah said, with the breath itself and the nice sound, then you could make the audience believe or hear certain accessible sounds that they've never heard before. Like, for example, sound effects or uncommon traditional lines fitting together. You believe that they fit and played, particularly with the presence of the nice sound and its big. It can come so easy and touch you on a human soul.
It sounds almost
With
like the
your
ney
name.
is a magic wand, even from the material that it's made of, you know, that it has some kind of hypnotic, spellbinding, and maybe it's the love that you have for it, but maybe it's actually because it's so old, a magical instrument.
Yeah, it is a magical one. Yeah.
And that makes you the magician then. I was trying to ask, so you're the traveling magician around the world in that case. So you've taken your nai around the world to different audiences in different circumstances and collaborations. How have you felt that the audience interacted with that sound? Because at once it's not a sound that we're familiar with in our general global popular culture anymore. But actually, when people probably hear it for the first time, it's so elemental.
Yeah.
Can you share with us some experiences you've had with audiences?
Well, it's different types of audiences. In the Middle East, as they know the instrument, they are respecting their hearing the ney in different ears. And also they are eager about the innovations that I work with. And they ask, I've done a couple of big performances like in the Palestinian festival in Lebanon, which brings also the classical aspect of Western music. So we did a performance in an ancient place in Saidun. And it was a very magical performance for the audience because the ney fits so much with the ancient spaces also. So it is kind of a collective trance that we go into. Similar to that, I've done various performances outside the Middle East. In jazz festivals, I've done a lot. They're respecting also the sound of the ney, but also they're eager how it fits with the jazz, with the percussive element. I've done a couple of interesting nature or historic site locations where we go into another collective sharing of sound, playing with the sound of wind, birds, surrounding birds. The first reaction I get from people is spellbinding, captivating. They listen. Even sometimes I play, I start the concert and saying like, I'm not feeling what's happening in my head. I'm not feeling, but the people are different. From the first sound of the ney, they get in tune with something very innate, in touch with our humanity. And I myself as the player, because I play it directly, it doesn't have the same effect on me as on the audience. So they are kind of my compass to be reminded about the basic sound can be still very, very, very powerful. And so with my solo performance, also just said, I take the audience into a journey from the basic sounds to contemporary, innovative, whatever. Yeah. So I'm so happy that I'm able to share it and it's getting resonance from people. So particularly in the solo project, sometimes after the performance, people come and ask me, do you use any electronic sounds or sound effects? Like, do you have something in the background, a loop machine? Or I said, no, this is pure acoustic. Everything's pure acoustic. So for me, that's a big success, just that phrase. I'm not sure if the audience is familiar because sometimes they ask, I use a frame drum on my right leg, like a leg-mounted frame drum. It creates beats in which the ney can improvise simultaneously, can improvise with the ney.
How has the ney, Faris, affected you and your relationship with yourself? Because it seems that somehow through this relationship with this ancient, beautiful instrument that's opened all these ranges of sound and connection, it's also reconnecting you back to you through your breath, through grounding. Can you talk a little bit about how the instrument has helped you become who you are, or more of who you are over the last period of exploration?
Well, I'm lucky that I play. I'm really lucky. Like, it's such a blessing. As you said, there are different periods of exploring the breath and its relationship with the ney and developing your unique sound. So at the beginning, it was trying to break away from folklore. And at that point, the ney didn't really like it. Like, I can see the conflict between me and the ney itself. It's the sound kind of cracks a little bit. It's not the beautiful, pure sound. So at that point, it needs time. So I took a bit of time, and I realized that it's a long process. It needs to be continued playing. And the most beautiful thing I realized with particularly the breathing and the ney is not to force anything. That's the thing. And for me, mastering that alone took me a lot of time, just trying to play things effortlessly and without any force. At that point, I was able to expand on the nice sound and take it into new places without forcing, or it seems something not natural or
Yeah,
organic.
like a coercion of sorts.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah.
So for me, playing my original Palestinian music and Arabic music becomes similar to jazz and other world music. It becomes like it's the same person.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's a kind of internal integration and it's reflected back through the ney. And then that process continues as well, expands into that music. It becomes more of your own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you are a Palestinian jazz musician as well as a Palestinian master, right?
Yeah. I look at my relationship with my cultural heritage the same way I look to my father, my grandfather. It's like we honor them, we respect them, we share with them. But then at a certain point, we develop our own language personally, because this is how we also survive. This is our life. So
No,
yeah.
completely. This is why we're here, to express ourselves, bringing all of that together into our own frequencies. So, what's next, Faris? Where do you see your music evolve? From what we've talked about, I don't think there is a weight of responsibility anymore because of that integration that you've talked about, literally the embodiment, the grounding nature of the ney itself. Are there new fields you're going into? How are you going to keep reinventing this instrument through time?
Well, now I'm in the last phase of finishing my album, which is my second solo album. I'm looking into this album as an electronic music producer with the mentality of that, but implementing everything acoustically live through my percussion set, playing simultaneously with the ney. This project would keep me busy for a while because we're getting into new places in the music industry where there's now applications that make music very instant, like production, very instant with AI generating music, or even softwares on the phone that make it so easy to create music. So we're going away from the contemplative, slow way of creating music to somewhere still unknown, let's say. And as you know, there's so much clutter, is that the correct word to say, in the music industry, and it's becoming like fast food consumption. So with Jasad, I created it because I felt disconnected from modern world. I'm playing with the idea of, instead of relying on technology, is to exploring our body as a form of advanced technology. Using the ney sound, one of the oldest instruments that still exists, it showcases how contemporary it can also sound, and make it particularly accessible for multicultural audience and younger audience. So this album does not only bring folklore, it brings a wide range of sounds. I want them to reach a wider range of audiences. So that's what's gonna keep me busy for, I guess, I don't know how.
Yeah, and I think that's a lifelong project as well because it's reminding us of our sound body. You're absolutely right. Our body is such an extraordinary technology that individually expresses each of us. And And somehow the soundscapes of our body is something that we have not really explored enough. We know it's there because of the relationship that I have when I hear the nai, what it makes to me, the trance element, the ecstatic element, the old memory that rises from the past, but also as I'm listening to it is reinvented again through how I'm reacting to it. And so that is such an important essence of who we are as human beings, you know, that has kind of drifted away underneath the modern chatter, clutter, banging, crashes, whatever we want to call it, that we holistically call our modern noise. And kind of coming towards the end of our conversation, can you give us some reflections on how you see this reemergence and the return to bring forward the importance of our folkloric traditions? Do you see this movement, this flow increasing? Are we moving towards a bigger river of interest emerging amongst different groups of people in folkloric traditions, but also with the foresight and maturity and nuance and subtlety to bring our modernity into it, because our modernity right now is so dislocated from everything, and somehow maybe folklore is that wisdom, that bridge that allows us to have this continuity and this shared experience with others.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest about this. I don't see the music industry going somewhere bright. It might be going to somewhere where everybody can have access to music, which is beautiful. This is the main beautiful thing that people can, because music offers a way of personal growth. And I think it's important to use it there, but also to differentiate using it for personal growth and adding to the clutter and to the noise. Because of having something instant, being able to create something on the spot and not having to rely on your body as a technology, as we said, I think it's a bit dangerous to our psyche, also to the continuity of our art and folklore. I had a chat with my friend Tara Minton. She's an incredible jazz harpist. She also joins me on the project of Kham. And she said art and creativity is not about the product, it's about the process. So I completely agree. If we lose the process, then part of our humanity is being compromised if we only focus on the product. So, yeah, that's if we want to advance nowadays as human beings with all of our collective intelligence and folklore, we need to advance in a more intentional way. And I am not against technology or AI. I love it. I love it. It's such an incredible tool that we are able to have this, because it's also an extension of our intelligence, our body. But yeah, it's a tool. It's not going to be the creator.
We return with folklore being an all too human endeavor that we all participate in, and it reminds us of our humanity. And that's a beautiful thing. Leah, do you have any more questions for Faris?
I suppose one tiny little question where you talk about the breath as the essence of how the person and the instrument and where this spontaneity can come from. As a technical aspect, how do you work with your breath? And maybe even listeners, how can they tune into their breath if it's this very powerful key to unlocking the mysteries of the universe?
Okay, the first main thing is to allow the natural breathing to happen. But with playing the ney, one of the most important things is when I do ney workshops is like to create a very subtle, not forced breathing to see where it goes. And then immediately the students want to have an immediate result for the ney. Particularly the ney, you cannot get an immediate result. You need to start listening to all the subtleties of sounds, and there will be some whisperings, and then the sound grows. So listening to that instead of focusing on the achievement itself, just playing this long tone or allowing your breath to come into the ney, and then allowing the ney to marinate also from your breath. It's a mutual connection. So that will develop into a bigger sound and more awareness about how the natural breathing can happen by playing. Yeah, in addition to allowing the natural breathing to happen and listening to it, then there's the part of exercising, the physical exercise of doing different breathing exercises, holding your breath. Also, the stomach exercises with the breathing is really important to allow to empower. So this complements each other, both exercising and letting go.
Thank you.
What a perfect place to stop. The nai, no wonder, is it our oldest surviving instrument, and it leads a life of its own through the people who it honors by being present with. You know, Faris, in so much that you chose the nai chose you, and it is about breath. It is about companionship. It is carrying nature itself, the sound of nature itself. What an incredible instrument. What an incredible artist you are, Faris. We are so delighted that you were here with us to share some of these insights and wisdoms. Can you let our visitors know where they can find you?
Of course, they can find me in all digital platforms. They can hear that my music. I'm also on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok and anything. Like, just choose a bit. So Instagram, official website, digital platforms, and the bands in town, and my website to find my upcoming concert, my upcoming solo album tour happening in March. So stay tuned for that. There will be a show in London, Manchester, Sheffield. There's a large presence in the UK and also internationally.
So, listeners, if this is the first time you've met Faris, please delve into his music. Please learn more. I've been rewarded by that experience, and I have every confidence you will too. Thank you, Faris.
Thank you so much, Muna.
Before we close, I want to share something personal. After we recorded this episode, I had the chance to see Faris perform his project Jasad live at Conway Hall here in London. Jasad is Arabic for body. And that word, it stayed with me long after our conversation and long after his performance. Faris sat alone on the stage with his instruments, and yet it never felt solitary. It felt inhabited. The music wasn't just played to the audience, it moved through us. It drifted, it settled, it filled the space and the body in equal measure. It felt like nourishment. I was literally filling up with a sound that was both ancient, present, and needed. Because what Faris creates isn't just music. It's something rooted in breath, in the physical act of sound moving through the body. The ney, as we learned, is a breath instrument, one of the oldest we have. And in Jasad, Faris builds a whole world from that, layering it with rhythm, with movement, with a quiet pulse of his own foot percussion. And perhaps that's what Jasad is really pointing to, and what Faris was trying to share with us. That folklore, like music, doesn't just live in memory or tradition, it lives in the body itself, in breath, in rhythm, and in vibration. Something carried, something felt, something shared. Thank you for listening to Tau Radio.